Ohio. We're high on Ohio. These stories inform and inspire through the words of people who make Ohio home. Good news and good ideas, identifying and acknowledging the excellence that is all around us.
So you're sort of talking in a centrist way without being a centrist, just being progressive, because you're saying, let's come to the middle in terms of whether we swing to the individualism or swing so much in terms of community.
Well, I argue that there has been a long consensus that really started in the progressive era. You know, American progressives, I think, contrary to some of the stuff said about us, we've never been statists in the sense that, you know, Franklin Roosevelt didn't try to get rid of capitalism. He actually saved capitalism. And that we've never rejected the market. We've never said that the government should take over all industry in the United States. We've always believed in an important role for the private sector. But we have also believed in a role for government in protecting us against concentrated economic power. In the book, I go back to the 1912 election. And if you look at what Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson said about the dangers of concentrated economic power, they sometimes sounded like they walked off an Occupy Wall Street encampment. Yet both of these gentlemen, Roosevelt and Wilson, were fundamentally conservative in some important ways. And so I think we had a long consensus that began with Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson, operated through the New Deal, through the Eisenhower era. Remember, Eisenhower gave us the interstate highway system, the federal student loan program, and right through the Great Society. I think rhetorically, certainly, Ronald Reagan revolted against this. He said famously, government isn't the solution to our problems, government is the problem. And yet the Reagan presidency did not push back against government nearly to the degree that some of our conservative friends right now want to push against it. And so, yes, I do believe it is a broadly moderate vision, but I think in a deep sense, progressives have always been moderate because we've always been about this balance.
So looking forward to where the political discourse is going to go, what is it that keeps you up at night?
Well, depending on when people view this video, the possibility of a government shutdown or defaulting on our national debt because we don't raise the debt ceiling, that keeps me up at night. A kind of what I see as artificial polarization. While I was here, I talked to Mayor Coleman, and Mayor Coleman is, as you know, very proud of the fact that he brings together business and labor and the community. And trying to sort of figure out, what can government do, what ought it to do, but how do we do that in a way that strengthens all sectors in the city? That's the kind of conversation that very practical people, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, often have at local levels of government. There is a much stronger sense of we're all in this together, I think, at the local level. But we used to have that sense of we're all in this together at the national level. And obviously there are moments of crisis in our history which really promoted that. I think we had this strong sort of communitarian sense in the Roosevelt years because collectively we had to work together to end the Depression and we had to work together to win World War II. And we don't want to have wars to create this feeling of community spirit. And so what I worry about is that over the last decade, we've really lost that sense of we're all in this together politics in Washington. And the next book I'm working on is about conservatism because I have a lot of admiration for conservatism. In the book, I talk about William F. Buckley, Jr., who's one of my heroes, which will seem odd to people. I hope I'm about 5% as effective for my side of politics as he was for the conservative side. But one of the books Bill Buckley wrote toward the end of his career was a book called Gratitude. And it was a book about what we all owed back to our country for protecting us and nurturing us. There has been historically this very strong sense of community among conservatives. And I want to know why that has been lost to the degree it's been lost on the conservative side. And I want to encourage my conservative friends. They may not really want to listen to me, but I want to encourage them to rediscover this aspect of conservatism, because I think it's always the most constructive forms of conservatism have always kept in mind the importance of community and not just been individualists. Indeed, historically, conservatives often criticize liberals for being too individualistic. I think we need a different kind of conservatism that harkens back to some of these things.